Hello and welcome back. And in this video, we're going to basically test out our core data manager to see if all the functionalities are working or not. Okay, so what we're going to do is we have put together the whole core data manager. Now let's go ahead and quickly use it in a sample code where we can actually try to use all the functionalities, creating a record. Basically, if you go back, so we'll try creating a record, getting all the records, basically toggling their state, and then deleting that record completely. Okay, so I thought for that reason, what we're gonna do is we will create 4 buttons, and we're gonna put those buttons onto our view controller and simply click through each of those and print in the console what is happening. Okay, so that'll basically allow us to test out our functionality before we actually go further down and build the entire functionality, just to find out some of the things are not working. Because the knowledge is fresh, we have just created this, so we can actually go ahead and see if things are not working. We can actually try and fixing it right now. Okay, so let's go ahead and start with basically creation of a button, and we're going to create that button programmatically. And I always like to create my UI controls with lazy property, so they are only initialized and created in the memory when they are needed, essentially when they are added to the view. That actually saves a lot of time for app or page load, and basically your app is more memory optimized. Okay, so let's go ahead and create our lazy variable. We're gonna call this one sample or add new button. This is gonna be a UI button type, and we're gonna simply initialize it as a computer property. Let's create a view for UI button and return this view. Now, one of the most important thing that you gotta do after you create a view is to turn off the auto sizing mask, so we can use the constraints to constrain our view. Okay, so we're gonna simply say translate auto resizing mask into constraint is equal to false, so we can actually put our own constraints together. That's one thing. The other thing that we want to do is we want to set the title. So we're going to say set title, and add task is going to be the title for the UI state as normal. Now we're going to need some functions which are going to be decorated with @obj c property wrapper, essentially marking them to be used with our UI controls, and we can directly call them as a selector. So first one we're going to create is going to be a function called add new task. Sender is going to be a UI button, and this guy is simply going to add a new task into the core data. And now we have that task ready. We're going to simply register this with the button by calling v.target, and add target is the function that we are looking for, and the target is basically self, the view controller, which is going to handle this. The action is basically a selector, and selector takes basically an Objective-C decorated method, which is our add new task. Sender is automatically populated, so we don't have to pass that. And the event that we want to actually basically we want to fire this target action for is touch up inside. So when user has touched the button or tapped on the button and they have released it while their finger was inside the button's bound, then only if you want to fire this. So that's what this touch up inside mean. Okay, all right, so add new task is simply going to create a new task, and we are going to temporarily we're going to temporarily import core data. Okay, We will not need this for our real example, because all of our logic is basically going to go through our view models. But since we are testing the code, we'll just add this, so we have, like, we can actually create our task and stuff like that. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a task, or actually, you know what, let's see what core data manager looks for. Shared dot add, well, it's actually looking for name and due date, so we probably are not going to need it. So let's go ahead and take this out. Okay, and what we want to do is we want to create add a new task. So we're gonna just add a new task with all the values defined right here. So what I'm excuse me, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just say a new task for the name, and the due date is basically adding time interval, and let's add time interval of 100,000. Okay, and now our record should be created. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to create another button. So I'm going to copy this button, and this button is going to be get tasks button. Okay, and this guy is going to be called get tasks, and the selector is going to be by the way, you don't have to pass sender if you don't want to. I'm actually passing in case we need to change any state for the UI button. We actually have a reference to the UI button, so we can actually change colors and stuff like that, somehow notify our user that, hey, the button was in a tabbed state. So for that reason, we are just doing it, but you honestly don't have to do this. Okay, so for the get task, we're going to simply reach out to core data, and we have get all function, which actually returns the tasks. So we're going to say let tasks is equal to this, and for task in tasks, we're simply going to print task dot name. Okay, and that will basically give us all the tasks that have been stored so far. And I'm just gonna nil coalesce with an empty string, so that warning basically disappears. Okay, so let's go ahead and change the selector name to get tasks. Okay, and that's our get task button. Now let's go ahead and toggle the state. So toggle completed button, mark completed, mark task completed. Okay, and we're gonna create another Objective-C function, and you can actually just mark this that way you know basically what's happening here. What we're going to do is we're going to simply rename this function, and we're going to call this mark completed. Okay, and we're going to basically, first thing we're going to do is we're going to reach out to core data manager. Actually, we need all the tasks. Okay, and what we want to do is first thing we want to reach out to the core data manager dot share dot toggle completed. Okay, and we want to pass or toggle completed for all the tasks that are so far stored inside the core data. Let's go ahead and see what this guy is saying. Optional value. Okay, so let's go ahead and nil coalesce. This is not gonna cause any issue because ID is returned as optional, which is core data default. So this part will never execute. This is basically just to make sure that the value, because we are expecting the value to be passed unwrapped, that's why it's asking for this nil coalescing. Okay. So ideally right now all of our tasks should be marked as completed. So what we're going to do is we are going to go ahead and put this again. And I know this is inefficient, but this is just a test code, so don't worry about it. Fetched tasks, and what we want to print is basically the task name. Okay, and its completed state. And we also want to basically print the completed on. Okay, so task dot completed on dot formatted. Let's put date style as an abbreviated date and time as omitted. Okay, so this will give us the string. And this guy is complaining about basically printing an optional string, so we're just simply gonna nil coalesce with an empty string. All right, so this is our toggle completed. Last button that we need is basically a button to mark or to delete the item. So delete task button. Okay, and this is going to be delete task. All right, and let's go ahead and create a new function. I'm going to copy this because we're going to need something similar. Delete task. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is we're going to reach out to core data manager, and instead of toggling, we're going to say delete. Once again, delete takes basically a UUID as well. So we're going to say task.id, nil coalesce this with UUID, new initialized value of UUID, and what we should get is nothing. Basically, nothing should be reported, and what we can, because all the items should have been deleted by now. We are deleting pretty much everything because we are getting everything. We are going over and deleting them. So fetch task should fetch 0 count. Okay, so this is our delete task. Let's go ahead and call that selector delete task for the delete task button. Okay, now when we have all of our UI components ready and they are basically attached to the correct target action, now we are ready to basically lay them out onto the screen. Now for programmatic layout, the first thing you do is add views. Okay, so you add your views onto the screen, and you do that by reaching out to the view for the view controller, and you say add subview, and add subview is gonna expect you to pass in all these values. So UI button is a basically subclass of a view, a UI view. Okay, so in its inheritance hierarchy, it's basically inherited from the UI view. That means we can actually pass this add button directly into this add subview. So we're going to add new button just like that, and we can repeat this for all these other controls, but we don't have to do that. There is a simpler way. We're simply going to create an array. Okay, and we're going to add basically all of our UI components. So add get toggle and delete. Okay, so basically this is an array of all the UI components, and we're going to use for each to basically get the control. Okay, and we're gonna call view.add subview for each control, and this is gonna basically add all the views onto the screen. Now, once again, this is a temporary solution just to be able to test our functionality out. Also to give you a preview of like, what does it take to create programmatic constraints and programmatic UI. Okay. Now, once you have added your views are there, and so a UI view controller will do everything possible to lay them out correctly. But what we want to do is we want to make sure that we actually lay them out, because we are also marking this auto resizing mask into constraint as false. That means all these views are gonna stack on the top of each other. We don't want to do that. We want to add constraint where they appear like, basically in a column. Okay, so next thing you do for programmatic UI, you add constraints. Okay, and constraints are simply call ns layout constraints and activate them directly. And this takes basically an array, and you can find all your constraints right here. So you're going to start with add new button. Okay, so add new button dot leading. Basically, leading is so this is your leading edge, this is your trailing edge, this is your top edge, and this is your bottom edge. When we are laying out our controls, we actually want to make sure that if we want the control to cover edge to edge, we say leading and make it equal to something. So leading anchor dot constraint equal to, and we want to add some padding. So we're going to simply say this is going to be equal to view dot leading. So whatever view's leading edge is, and constant is going to be 16 points. So there's a margin or a gap of 16 points between them. Okay, so that's your leading edge. For the trailing edge, we're going to use trailing anchor. We're going to go to the trailing anchor of the view. But if we put margin in positive, this is the trailing edge. If we put like margin in positive, the view is going to go beyond. We don't want it to go beyond. So what we're going to do is we're going to change that direction of margin by putting negative in here, and it's going to pull the view inside. Okay, so this is your trailing edge. Now we're going to add basically one for top anchor. So this is the first item. So we're going to create top anchor equal to the view dot safe area layout guide. Okay, so basically you have top anchor and you have your safe area layout guide. So safe area layout guide is drawn right here where your taskbar ends. Basically all your gesture for your time and for all the information and control center access, those things appear on this this top part. Okay, and safe area layout is right underneath. So what we want to do is we want to draw our UI right after that, not on the top, because basically due to the notch, your view is not going to be rendered in this space. So we want to render our view right here. So for that, we're going to say it's going to be the safe area layout guide dot top anchor. Now safe area layout guide is present everywhere. Okay, for top, bottom, leading, and trailing. Okay, so we want to basically get the top anchor and we want to mark it with a constant of 16. Okay, so that's your first button. Now second button is going to go in relation to the add new button. So we're going to simply say get task button. Okay, leading edge is going to be once again same as the leading edge for the view with the same constant. Trailing edge is going to be same as the trailing edge for the view with negative marking, negative property. And for the this is for the get task. Okay, and for the top anchor, this is going to be equal to the add new buttons bottom anchor. So wherever that button ends, we want to actually get that anchor and we want to actually make it as the top anchor for the task button. and we're gonna basically add the gap between views as 8 points. Okay, so just put 8 here, and now you have your get task button and add new button constraints created. Let's go ahead and run this so far and see what we've got. All right, so what we should see is basically we should see buttons. Okay, there we go. And as you can see, we have our add task and get task. Both of them are laid out properly, and rest of the controls are stacked at the top here. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna just lay out the rest of them, which is gonna be relatively easy because we're gonna follow the same pattern. So let's go ahead and add a comment here so we know where get task is ending. So right here. Next one is toggle completed. Okay, and this is gonna be our toggle completed button. Okay, so let's go ahead and copy and paste and make sure all three of them are toggle completed. Leading and trailing are fine because we want still them to still align to the leading and trailing, but for the top we want to align it right after the get task button, and this should add our third button right underneath the get task. Now delete task is the only thing that's remaining up there, so let's go ahead and add that as well. So I'm gonna simply copy this and paste it right here, and I'm gonna say delete task button. Okay, and this is gonna basically go at the right after the toggle completed button. Okay, all right, so these are all of our buttons. Now let's go ahead and we've added all the buttons, added all the functionality, so we should add our task, get task. So our get task is now printing, mark task as complete, and our new task is basically printed. So let's go ahead and check out what's going on there. Did we bind the right target or no? Oh yeah, so this is where the problem is. We forgot to call the correct action method, and let's go ahead and call that. Okay, so we're gonna simply mark completed, and let's go ahead and delete this task as well. Okay, so task is 0, nothing is being printed. Okay, I'm gonna rerun, and what we should see this time is basically our task being added. Okay, so add task, get task, mark as complete. So task mark true on this date, and delete task, which is gonna delete. And if we do get task, nothing is gonna get printed because there is no record for us to basically fetch. Okay, I'm gonna add a couple of tasks again, and you're gonna see more tasks, and we're gonna basically mark all of them completed, and we're gonna delete all of them. And if we do get task, we're not gonna get anything. Okay, so basically now in this video you saw how you can create programmatic UI. Now this is not the UI that we're gonna be building. We're gonna basically change this, and we're gonna have basically UI that actually represents our true app, but this actually helps us test our code that whatever we have put so far is actually working. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this code into a I'm going to actually comment this. So what I'm going to do is we can just copy this guy. Okay, and I'm going to comment this, and I'm going to go at the top. So for reference only. Okay, so this is basically for your reference, and I'm gonna paste the code right back here, delete all these things. We don't need any of these. Add views, we're gonna delete all of these, and we're gonna delete all the action functions because we're gonna create them with the UI that's more relevant to us. All right, so after this cleanup, what we should get is our original state of the view controller, which we had earlier, which had just the title. Okay, all right, so with that, we have reached the end of this video, where we actually were able to not only learn how to create a programmatic UI, but also we were able to test the core data manager that we have put together in last few videos and make sure it's functioning fine and it's working fine and doing everything that it can and it needs to do. Okay, so with that, let's go ahead and hop on to the next video, where we're going to continue building our app. I'll see you guys there. Thank you.